with our first topic, which is Ant-Man's box office is the biggest drop-off in its second weekend for the MCU. It dropped off 69.7%, only opening at 32.2 million for its second weekend. Its first weekend was at 104 million, so that's quite the significant drop off. If I read correctly, I believe that Black Widow dropped off at 67%, somewhere in that range.
Yeah.
So it's pretty massive, especially for a movie that I didn't think was that bad. So I'm surprised to see this. Like, I honestly thought Black Widow was worse than this movie, and I liked Black Widow too. I just think like this movie was fun and was a good time, and maybe people were just expecting it to be a little bit more than it was, or maybe it was hyped up more than it should have been. I don't know. It's probably because it is the opener for Phase 5, and people were disappointed with Phase 4, so the bar was raised instantly for Phase 5. You know, it's got to be better than Phase 4. And I don't know if people are having that expectation met necessarily with this movie, but I think we got to realize, at least for me, with the first movie in any phase, it's kind of weaker to me than later movies. Like, Iron Man was weaker to me than when you say get to like Infinity War Endgame. Those were pretty epic. Those are two different phases, but even like Avengers, the first Avengers movie, was pretty much like 10 times more epic to me than Iron Man, and Captain America was a better movie to me than the Iron Man movies. So I feel like they get better over time, and they kind of figure out where their footing is going to be. And ever since Phase 3, for me at least, it's been like, how do you follow that up? So they've already had a really hard time trying to meet that expectation. So I think it's going to be hard, but I'm hoping that Ant-Man doesn't crash and burn, because I want them to be able to have a fourth movie. And I've just seen like some really nasty things said about like the actors in the movie, or like the movie itself, or even the MCU, and it just makes me sad, because it's like we used to all really love the MCU, and now it just feels like it's not that way anymore. The tides are kind of turning a little bit.
100%.
Not fully, but a little bit. What are your feelings on this?
Well, we heard an analyst, I can't remember where it was from, but it was an article I read at the beginning of the week where an analyst basically, I believe from Variety, if I'm not mistaken, looked at the numbers, compared it to other films like Black Widow, like you said, but also compared it to films like Spider-Man No Way Home, a film that is critically, financially a huge success, had a major second weekend box office drop. So it's not that abnormal, although 67% is a huge drop off. It used to be like 50% was like the goal, kind of the standard, if you will. But in these bigger comic book movies that have so much spoilers, that have so many loyal fans, they want to go in the opening weekend. So there's that opening weekend to second weekend drop, I feel like has increased significantly over the last few years.
I can agree with that.
Specifically with the MCU as well. But there's not really any way you can look at it and call this good news. There's no way you can look at this and call it a
Not
success.
really,
This
no.
is not what they wanted. Their critical rating, their audience divisiveness, and the box office as a whole is just not what the MCU was hoping for. And I think you were talking about expectations. It's not what the fans were hoping for. I know myself, somebody who did like the film, it was my third favorite of the Ant-Man movies. If you didn't catch my Ant-Man ranking, you can go ahead and check that out. But I do think that this film, in a lot of ways, like you said, it's the opening to Phase 5, and so we know further down the road we're going to be getting a lot better movies, or at least movies that have bigger stakes, bigger scale. And this one should have felt huge, and for me personally, I just felt like the stakes were not there. I just felt like there really wasn't that much tension in the movie. Just a few scenes here and there with Kang and Ant-Man where I questioned whether or not maybe Ant-Man could die. Maybe they're not going to do an Ant-Man 4. But even though he lived, even though pretty much everybody lived in the movie, no spoilers, I still have my doubts that we're going to be getting an Ant-Man 4. However, I would still be excited if we did. I would hope that they would bring it back down to earth, bring it more a grounded level, so we could have Michael Pena back, we could have David S. Malchian back as Kurt, we could have maybe T.I. come back as Dave. I'd love for a more grounded Ant-Man 3. But this box office, not what they were expecting, not what they were hoping for.
I will say, you said it was divided among fans, and we saw that even on our channel. We posted a community post asking everyone, hey, what did you think of this movie? And it was pretty divided. We had it pretty much a three-way tie between really love it, liked it but didn't love it, and hated it. So I mean, we
Right.
didn't. It's very divided.
It
wasn't.
is.
It's not like you either love it or you like it. It's either you love it or you hate it, and that's like two main feelings.
I think there's a smaller amount of people that love it than there is amount of people that were like, it was pretty good. I think
Right.
the most people that liked this movie felt like they liked it, but there was issues, as opposed to, oh, this was my favorite MCU movie.
Right.
I haven't
right.
seen many video essays coming out as to why we're wrong about Ant-Man and the Wasp: Quantumania. You know what I mean? Like, a lot of the criticisms for this movie have been from fans and haters, I guess you would say,
Right.
of this film.
Yeah, I would agree because there's been fair criticism on both sides of the ball. There's been fair criticism from people who liked it, and again from people who didn't like it. And then there's also been criticism from people who aren't even MCU fans that went to see it that I think is still even fair. So, I mean, I get why there's criticism. I just personally really enjoyed it, thought it was a good time, and just kind of took it as like a space adventure. And I think that's why I probably enjoyed it more than most people, is because I just went in without any expectations whatsoever. And I think that's hard, especially with the MCU, because they've set themselves up for failure, I think, in a way. Because
Really?
they've had such a good track record that it's like, where do you go from there?
Yeah, you keep going up, you keep going bigger in scales.
At some
Eventually,
point, there's going to be a downward slope. It's like
Right.
not every roller coaster goes up forever. You're going to go up, and then you have to come back down in order to go back up.
and exactly in order to go back up, and I think they will. And
I think they will, too.
remember, this film, Ant-Man and the Wasp: Quantumania, was produced and developed under the Bob Chapek era,
Right.
where Marvel Studios and Disney was pumping out 19 projects last year or something
That
like
was
that.
insane. And for me, like, not very many of those projects landed. Just
Right,
for
and
me.
a lot of Phase 4 as a whole was very mixed, or liked it but not loved it. There wasn't very many Spider-Man No Way Homes in there. There wasn't many Infinity Wars, Endgames, Civil Wars, Winter Soldiers, etc. So I do think Phase 5 will get better from here, because a lot of it, although it's being developed now and some of it has been developed before, like Quantumania, a lot of the future MCU stuff will be under the Bob Iger era. Not saying he's perfect, not saying he's Superman for Disney and MCU, but they have said that they're pushing back some of these shows, they're pushing back some of these movies because they want to focus on quality over quantity. And at this point, I'm going to believe it until they give me reasons to doubt it.
I'd agree. But what do you guys think of all this mumbo jumbo going on with the box office drop? Do you think that this is a problem, or do you think that we shouldn't be worrying about it? Let us know what you guys think in the comments down below.